you ready to get the podcast started? The host of the Bitchuation Room, Francesca Fiorentini! Keep it going for Molly Rubin Long, everybody. We love her. This cute, crazy clown music. How you guys doing, Brooklyn? What's up? Let all the people on the live stream hear you. What's up, Brooklyn? There's 8,000 of them. Yes, yeah. What's up? I'm your host, Francesca Fiorentini. I'm the host of the Bitchuation Room podcast. You've seen me on the thing and that other thing and the one time and that thing that your friend shared with you, but you don't know who I am. And you approach me in Nordstrom Rack, and I'm like, nope, that's not me. And yeah, here I am. So good to fucking be here. So good to be here. Before we get the show started, fuck Putin. How about that? Yeah. Hell yeah. Fuck that guy. You know what I mean? He had a moment, you know, when he was like barebacked on that horse, and I was like, maybe we've got him all wrong. I don't think so. Fuck Putin. We stand with Ukraine. More on that later. Are you guys ready to talk news on a Thursday? The fuck? Woo! Yes. And with me, joining me for the show, you've seen him on Hulu, you've heard him on Pod Yourself a Gun, and you've seen him also on the show News Broke. No big deal. Please put your hands together for the comedian Matt Lieb.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hell yeah. Good. You guys big fans of my Sopranos podcast? All right. 15 people and like 8 liars. Hell yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming out. You guys all look beautiful.
Great show. Should we get our next guest up here?
Let's do it. Who's our next guest? I just leave immediately.
Go get him.
It's my time.
Go get him. Go see who it is. Go to the door.
Huh?
No, go. Okay, that's enough. We've got a lifetime of this, babe. Oh, man. A fucking lifetime.
We're engaged. Fuck yeah!
He trapped me.
You're trapped.
With a really ugly ring,
It was
guys.
a bad ring.
I don't know how, like, he should have been trapping, I don't know, like old Jewish grandmas with that ring.
Yeah. It was the worst ring ever. I don't know if anyone knows this story, but basically what had happened was I got a custom ring based on a picture she sent me months ago of a good ring. And they didn't have that kind of ring. I just wanted a square and a circle. and they didn't have. And
I
also,
love this is how men explain it. A square and circle.
Yeah, that's right.
Men explain rings to you.
What do I know from rings? All I knew is a square.
Do you guys have those squares with circles? Oh, yes, sir. I believe we do. Right this way.
They're only $5,000. Ooh, that sounds cheap. So I got it custom made, and it was he told me it was gonna be London blue. It was a blue topaz because no conflict stones. She didn't want a conflict stone.
Nope.
And what do you know? We're in fucking conflict about it. She hated it. It was the ugliest ring. As soon as I got it, I was like, oh no, it looks like a ring pop. Why is it so big? Who wants a stone that big?
All right, let's get the show going. This is not about
we're
us.
in love.
We've got to talk about Ukraine and oil, everybody.
Yeah, trying to lighten the mood.
Also joining us, he is the host of The Majority Report, a daily show I'm sure you guys have all heard about. And when the sun is out, his guns are out. Oh God, what a fucking nightmare. It is Sam Seder, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
I don't know if you guys heard, but the three of us are engaged.
Polycule.
Really? Because that'd be really tight. I'm like into it. No?
That's great.
Okay. No, that's cool. We can talk about it after.
I am not vaccinated. Thank you.
And that is why.
I would love the idea of being in a polycule with 2 Jewish men, you know? Just having to handle 2 Jewish men at the same time, just so much, just anxiety at all times.
I think you can handle it.
Thank God there are 2 nights of Passover. Mm-hmm. We alternate.
Yeah, exactly.
Bruce family.
I think this is the rest of the show.
First years.
I want planning our polycule to be the rest of this fucking show.
New podcast.
That was like the dream I had about this. It's going even better. All right, you guys. We start the show off every single week, every Sunday, 5/8 Eastern. Yes, I hate the Lord's Day. The same way as we always do, which is to ask, what are you bitching about now? Fucking amazing. So, Matt Lieb.
Yeah.
What are you bitching about today?
What is everyone else bitching about? These damn gas prices. You know what I mean? These goddamn gas. No, here's what I'm bitching about in regards to gas prices. I love how they can raise immediately. But then when oil starts flowing again, they're like, all right, it'll be back at $5 a gallon in, say, 8 months. 8 months. It's like they absolutely control, and you know who
Who's they?
You know, the Illuminati.
Oh, they're gonna say, yeah.
Bill Gates and his microchip company, they control the gas. And I feel like the prices are clearly manipulated and inflated by Wall Street energy traders, and we all act like it's, something that's naturally occurring gas.
That's what my mom says every time she does pass gas.
Yeah, that's true. Every
it's
time.
Natural.
Her mom likes to fart and go, it's natural.
And then Matt picked it up.
Yeah, now I do it because I fart a lot. But the point is...
No, that's good. What kind of car do you drive?
The engagement is off.
I drive a 2006 Honda Civic LX. Thank you.
What color?
It gets like, what color?
Yeah.
It's a tan car.
Hell
I drive a tan car. I'm very proud of my tan car.
And what does it get?
What?
What mileage does it get?
Oh, it gets great mileage, like 25 in the city or something like that. I don't know. It says I drive it only sometimes. I bought it from an old lady who...
Is she still around? Because we could sell the ring to her.
No, that's a good point. No, she's definitely dead. She used it only had 21,000 miles on it when I bought it because she only used it to go to Bevmo and back. So, anyways, I got a deal.
All right, that's good. All right, so you're bitching about gas prices.
Gas prices. I'm just saying, we can lower them in the same way we manipulate the market by hiring, by making them high. It's all just market manipulation, and we act like it's instead this act of God.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
Sam Seder, what are you bitching about tonight?
I just saw this today, actually, and so I've been bitching about it. I've actually been bitching about this for a while, but now I have specific evidence of it. There was a report that came out today that in 2020, the IRS audited poor people with incomes under $25,000 at 5 times the rate it audited everyone else last year. 5 times the rate. And it, forgive me for swearing, it fucking drives me crazy, the complete underfunding that we have done consistently of the IRS.
Yep.
When we know that for every dollar you spend on the IRS, you get a return of somewhere between $5 and $7. And we don't have a media that points out the fact that there has been a systemic program over the past 40 years but more often than not when the Republicans are in office, to underfund agencies and then blame them for doing bad things.
Yeah.
So it happens with Social Security Administration, and it's happening with the IRS. The only thing that is mitigating how pissed off I am is that in this budget they passed yesterday, they added, I think, about $600 million to the IRS budget, which is going to end up, I mean, it's going to be several $billion that are coming back in. But the problem is that when they audit really wealthy people, they have so many lawyers that the auditors just stay away. So that's
it's
what I'm
just
bitching
much
about.
easier to go after poor people or middle-income people than it is for rich
people making $25,000 or less. I mean, are a low income in this country, and it's the low-hanging fruit. And it's
that's why, like, I'm with like stand-up comics, and we're all like, I don't know, I might get audited if I write off this gas money. And you're like, what? Who would audit you? You made like
and it turns out
$20,000 last year, and it's like, yeah, the IRS will. They're like, I don't know, you got paid in drink tickets. That was at least $8 right there that you did not own up to. So stupid. All right, well, let's see. I'm bitching about this don't say gay bullshit in Florida. The don't say gay bill that passed the Senate today or yesterday, and it's going to be signed into law by just sort of head wound Trump, DeSantis. If that's even possible to get dumber than Trump. And so I'm bitching about the don't say gay bill because I think it's ridiculous that the idea that, like, discussions of LGBTQ issues or like inclusivity would be indoctrinating kids. Like, if you're gonna do a bill that prevents people from saying something, it should be like the don't say frozen bill. You know what I mean? Like, that's arguably doing far more damage to our children.
All the kids get in trouble if they even mention the existence of Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf. Get out of here.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, I see you have an Elsa backpack. Get the fuck to detention.
I'm sorry, did you say princess, little girl? Like, that's what I want. I want the don't say princess bill.
Give me that backpack. Let it go. Let it go. No, now I'm in detention. Oh, cruel fate.
You said it. I didn't sing it. Keep going. Hell yeah.
Don't say gay. It is extremely messy. I didn't know what that was when I first heard about it. It was the don't say gay bill, and for a second I thought it was like don't bully kids, by calling them gay. That's the first thing I thought. Yeah. It turned out to be the literal opposite.
Yeah.
So I was going around and you're like, yeah, no, that's good. Don't say gay, man. I would stop being bullied through all of 6th grade. Turns out it's a bill that does the bullying. So.
But it's like, what do they think? And it's from like kindergarten to 3rd grade. Yeah. What do they think kids are like crafting anal beads or some shit? like, I mean, maybe they should, but like, what? Just like, are you a sub or a dom, Jimmy? Like,
Mama, I made a macaroni picture of my kink.
Wow, that's great. Doesn't even fit on the page. What about you? You got kids?
I do, yes.
Cool.
What are your kids' kinks? Tell them about it.
Are they subs or doms or what?
We instituted the frozen rule a long time ago.
Oh,
actually.
good,
Yeah,
smart.
That was a real problem. I mean, it is nuts that there was a time 10, 15 years ago where if you talked about like some bat crap crazy bill that was being introduced in some legislature somewhere, people would be like, oh my God, stop being hysterical. Right. And now every fucking one of those bills passes and gets signed into law. Yeah. And it's happening around the country. And, we're close to a decade away from the idea of marriage equality, and we are literally just walking backwards. Yeah. Or running backwards.
I think they're going to go for that next. I mean, honestly, I think that's...
I without a doubt. I think that it's inevitable that you're going to start to see tests on that ability of people to get married and that's where we're headed. I mean, this is they're running out of, on some level, boogie people.
Yeah, but isn't it? It's kind of cute. I mean, it's awful, but it is kind of quaint that we're back to like satanic panic moments.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they have nothing else.
It is a level of ridiculousness that is unprecedented in terms of these types of bills that we would, like you were saying, would once find ridiculous. My dad sent me one of those email chain letters that was like, ridiculous laws that are still in place. In Michigan, if you have sex with a bear, you have to marry it. And now all of those laws are actually being written. They're like, well, actually, I think that should happen. Those bears need wives too. But yeah, it is.
That's how they talk in Michigan.
That's how
them bears need wives.
I do two accents. Hey, I'm a guy from everywhere, and I'm British. So that's the best you're gonna get.
Thank you.
David Beckham fish and chips.
Okay. Let's get into the week. It's not quite over, but a few things that happened. McDonald's announced it would temporarily close 850 restaurants in Russia in protest of their invasion of Ukraine. And I just think that's great because nothing is more American than thinking forcing people to eat better is punishment. Okay. Dr. Bronner's Magic Soap Company now offers ketamine therapy as part of its employee health care coverage.
Fuck yeah.
Ketamine can be used to treat depression, pain, epilepsy, ADHD, PTSD, and anxiety. It's basically, ketamine's like the Dr. Bronner's all-in-one of psychiatric drugs. Let's be real. You can use it anywhere.
And now when you take it, you can finally read all that little text. Just be like, I'm reading my book right now.
Yo, Dr. Bronner's burns in the hard to reach places. Let me just say, it burns down there, right? Don't.
I don't know what's in it, but
it stings. It's not.
Bad.
Yeah. Whole Foods now has the technology to let people grocery shop without paying in the store. The technology consists of hundreds of cameras and is known as Just Walk Out technology, which is fitting because Just Walk Out is what every Amazon employee should do. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. A 31-year-old Georgia man was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison on Friday after he spent $58,000 of a COVID relief loan on a first edition Charizard Pokemon card. After learning about the sentence, he said 3 years alone in a room with no women. How is that different from the last 31 years? And
virginity, I choose you.
And the pandemic is over if you want it. Masks and vax mandates are dropping all over the country, including here in New York. We did it, America. We finally forgot how COVID works. Again. Oh my God. For everything else, this is the week where. Oh, you're fine. Come back.
Just hiding.
I'll do that a couple more times tonight.
All right, bear with me. This was the week where Joe Biden announced he was unilaterally banning the imports of oil and gas from Russia for the country's ongoing war on Ukraine, which, keeping in Joe Biden tradition, is largely symbolic as Russia will continue selling to its major sugar daddy, China. It will, however, hurt Americans, hurt being a loose term, given that Land Rovers can't actually feel pain in the same way that the people of Ukraine can. Biden acknowledges the higher gas prices and is trying to call it Putin's price hike. You're like, okay, try again, buddy. Even though Russian gas is only 8% of our energy, so what's going on? What gives? Well, as Matt kind of alluded to, traders on Wall Street are artificially inflating oil in expectation of scarcity. That is traders, Traitors. The administration is touting that it's ramping up production, right? They're like, oh my God, we got so much oil. They're gloating at the fact they've got 34% more oil and gas permits than Trump did in his first year, even though Biden vowed to end drilling permits and fossil fuel subsidies. Still, we need oil, and the quickest way to get more oil is through OPEC, the oil cartel run by Saudi Arabia and UAE, who are currently not answering Biden's calls. Soups Ock. They're playing phone tag. I mean, that's what he says. But we need oil so bad that Biden officials went to Venezuela. And we're like, hi. You the president, Mr. Maduro. You the president. I don't even. Who's Guaido? What? We promise to never coup you. Please. And that's where things stand with Ukraine and oil, and I drive a Prius. I'm a fucking ally. End of story. Let's get into it, though. Sam, are you feeling pain in your pump?
Wow. You just ratcheted up the heat on this polycule.
Have you been washing with Dr. Bronner's? No, but essentially we're seeing the ways that war is creating an impetus for a heavier reliance on fossil fuels, as it pretty much always does.
Very consistently.
You know, I was talking about this today on the show. It's incredibly frustrating that there's no response from the center to the left on this issue as it comes up. I mean, you know, you got Steve Ducey's kid. I can't remember the kid's name. Peter Ducey, right? Thank you. At the White House press conference, you know, peppering the administration. Are you going to have more permits and this and that? And they're bragging, like you say, about how many permits have already been issued. Yeah. It seems to me there's basically two responses. One is, if this is a national security issue, that we need oil and we need to sort of match up our refining capacity with what we're able to pull out of the ground, we should nationalize all of it.
Yeah.
We should own. If this is genuinely a national security issue,
conclusion.
Let's not leave it to the private market. Let's nationalize the whole fucking bucket of it, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
And then the other answer is that, like, you know, while we're nationalizing all of their oil profits and you know, protecting our national security, we'll figure out how to phase it out. Yeah. I mean, that's basically it. But there doesn't seem to be any type of response to that because, of course, you don't want to say nationalize it if you're on the left because you don't want to promote necessarily the idea of maintaining the extraction of fossil fuels.
Right.
But the reality is that's going to happen for a certain period of time. I say we offer to nationalize the thing and take it seriously on their terms, and then we start to ramp it down.
I feel like the left would appreciate or like be able to like be okay with that message if it was like we nationalize oil, but then we also kill all the oil executives right after, like immediately. I mean, line
once
them up.
we own them.
I'm just saying.
Is this being recorded?
Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. They're trying to speak out of both sides of their mouths, right? In a long thread that Jen Psaki has, it's like, we've got all this oil production, but by the way, eventually climate change. I mean, green energy, you know, all the stuff that they know they're supposed to be saying, but you're wondering, like, at what's the year? It's like, well, we need 5 more years. And then, I mean, the IPCC's not giving us 5 fucking years, right? Yeah. Like, the UN's given us, I think there's 6 left. It was like 10 a little bit ago.
How do we not all have this countdown clock
right.
on our phones?
Yes.
Well, to be fair, look at what we did by getting rid of COVID. We could do the same thing with climate change.
Just ignore it?
Exactly.
That's an option?
It's over, folks. Climate change is over.
It's
too inconvenient. It's over. You're welcome.
So creepy. Well, of course, if you went on Fox News and said nationalize, I'm very curious as to what they would say.
I'd be curious what they say on MSNBC, frankly. They'd all freak out.
Yeah.
They would all freak out. It would be the last time you're on that network.
Sure.
Yeah. We both know that feeling, right, Sam?
I mean, yeah.
I'm like, have me back on? No, I don't know this man. What? Killing oil executives?
Kill him.
No, but it is interesting because a lot, like BP just dropped 20% of its shares in Rosneft, the Russian oil company. They're moving back to the United States because they're all like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to drill even more here. And again, this cannot be the option. And yet, the right is blaming folks like ourselves, people who believe climate change is real and want to move to renewables ASAP, keep it in the ground, as they say, stop line 5, line 3, all the fucking pipelines. And they are blaming one particular little teen specifically. Take a look.
That effectively reversed all of Trump's energy policies, and then he returned us to the climate Paris Accord because he's listening to people like Greta Thunberg and these climate radicals.
This is the irony of letting children like Greta Thunberg take up shelf space in your brain. Think about all the adults that took her opinion over the progress made in fracking or drilling or the necessity of coal in nearly every country. But no. How dare you? Remember that? How dare you? We all sat there. Oh, maybe she'll drop solar panels down into Kiev to save people.
There's a direct causal link between Greta Thunberg at the UN podium with the tears down her cheeks saying, how dare you, between that and all the damage she's been doing throughout Europe and the world, pushing for climate fanaticism and Vladimir Putin's dominance and being able to invade Ukraine last week. A direct causal link.
How dare you?
A direct causal link.
Call me Putin Daddy.
I've watched that clip about 25 times, and every time I hear him say, "Fucking Baba Booey, Baba Booey," but every time I watch it again, he doesn't. It's weird.
But just Greta hit a nerve, right? Because, like, what is that nerve that she hit? Just like a child looking into your eyes, begging you, please, don't do this. Fuck you, you piece of shit, Greg Gutfeld, wannabe comic asshole. Like, just like, you know, but because she did hit a nerve.
Yeah.
But even with the right, they love to dump on her. And I think does it go back to the fact that she got Person of the Year when Trump didn't? And right? Remember that?
Is that what it was? I thought it was just that they are disgusting and hate children.
Yeah.
That they are evil on the inside as well as the outside.
Well, let's switch it up and go to something a little bit lighter instead of suss out the global oil market on a Thursday. This was the week where professional famous person Kim Kardashian and the Botox, yes, we're doing it.
Yes.
Don't groan. The Botox Illuminati, that is her family, spoke with Variety about their rebooted reality series and had some words of wisdom for female entrepreneurs.
I have the best advice for women in business. Get your up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
That's so true.
You have to surround yourself with people that want to work. Have a good work environment where everyone loves what they do because you have one life. No toxic work environments, and show up and do the work.
That's what she says to her plastic surgeon. You show up and do the fucking work. But
it does sound like she is just being really passive aggressive towards one of her domestic maids, you know? Just like, show up and do the work, Blanca.
Yeah. One time I caught her resting.
Yeah.
Ew.
She takes a siesta every night for 8 hours. It's insane. Show up and do the work.
So ridiculous.
I gotta say, I 2 weeks ago went to Disney World with my kids, which was a little bit of a nightmare. But I saw animatrons that were more lifelike than those people.
Sam doesn't know what a Kardashian is.
Yeah.
And first saw this clip before the show and was like, what? Like a child seeing a...
I believe the words you said were, well, I've seen a picture, but I've never seen one move.
I had never seen them talk.
It's bad.
How did you miss all of the Kardashians? I tried. I couldn't. They just inundate you
They're
eventually.
everywhere.
I don't know.
They start sleeping with your favorite rappers. They start sleeping with your favorite comedians. And you're just like, God damn it. I just
When
wanna...
are they going to sleep with me? Is that what you're saying?
When?
No, but like Kim Kardashian lecturing us on like working is just so insane. This is a woman who's never worked a day in her life. Like letting a camera follow you from Starbucks to Cool Sculpting isn't work. You know what I mean? That's not like she's the daughter of a wealthy attorney. She's famous for a fucking, I mean, let's be real, for fucking and but anyway, she might be right. She might be right. It is difficult to be an influencer, to be that famous. Mm-hmm. Here she is at Fashion Week trying to walk while covered in tape. Wow.
She looks like she's really trying not to shit herself. She's got that holding in a poo-poo waddle.
Sitting. Oh, she did it.
She let it out. She let the poo-poo out.
All by herself, too.
Good for her, man.
It's amazing work ethic.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What?
That doesn't look like work to you?
I just don't know what it is.
Recognize women's labor, Sam. Oh, my God.
I love the idea of her just being like, my advice to entrepreneurs is generational wealth.
Yeah.
Be born rich. Then you can work and do whatever you want. And like the annoying thing too is like this, like nobody wants to work anymore has been this like mantra of like mostly right wingers and like McDonald's franchise owners and shit. Like who are just like, no one wants to work anymore inside of this giant cauldron of boiling oil and slippery floors for $11 an hour. Where are all the workers? And the annoying thing is, like, nobody wants to work anymore. Who the fuck wants to work?
Nobody wants to work.
Most people's jobs suck. So the idea that you should want to, like, be there more so than you just are trying to earn a paycheck, you know, that's bullshit. As society, we should be okay if someone's like, I don't want to work.
Absolutely.
I just want to bang on the drum all day.
I feel like in a backwards way, that's complimenting Kim K for what she's done, which is just not work and make hella money.
She just wants to bang on the drum all day.
She wants to be banged on like a drum. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeesh. I cannot believe Pete Davidson.
Is Pete Davidson in the room? I'm sorry.
That motherfucker better have 5 dicks.
Yeah.
Impossible.
At least 3.
At least 3 dicks. How? You know, Pete Davidson and I are the same mix. We're both Jewish and Irish. That's bullshit.
You need tattoos, babe.
I need to lose like 1 million pounds and get into Xanax or something. I'm better looking? Thank you. Thank you.
Yay, Matt's attractive.
I love Sam's half clap. Yeah, sure. I'll give it to him. I need this.
Any final thoughts, Sam?
Explain the tape. I don't get it.
Which tape?
What is she wearing?
She's wearing tape.
Oh, yeah. I don't get it.
It's Balenciaga.
It's art.
I don't know what that means.
It's Italian.
It's an Italian tape. It's the adhesive quality is good,
It's very different.
Why was she wearing that tape?
It's for taping a box of cannolis.
She couldn't even walk.
It's fashion.
How did she get out of it?
Scissors.
Can you imagine how much pain?
Forever. She's
This
in that
was
tape.
a mistake.
Listen, if she's in the tape forever, that's commitment.
No, yeah, that's true. If it were an art installation and she was just doing that, I would respect it more.
I just don't get the tape.
It's just, it's an art statement about how,
we're all like behind caution tape.
Yeah, we're all. It's like caution. You know what I mean? Caution, I got feelings and stuff.
All right, you guys, let's move on to our final story. I thought it was going to be juicier for you.
I'm amazed by the tape thing. I just can't get past it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wrapped around her whole body.
No, I know.
After that, I don't know what it's about.
This is the week where yet another former Trump official made the media rounds in a walk of shame or insanely lucrative book deal where they tell secrets about Trump's reckless behavior, but really just tell on themselves for doing fuck all about it. This time, it's former Attorney General Bill Barr. Don't move. Don't go anywhere, Sam. Now, I bought Bill Barr's book for $22 on Kindle so that I could do this show for you. That's why. I read it. Thank you. I didn't need an applause, but yay, the Frantifa is strong. So essentially, just summarizing the book, his life is great. He's amazing. George W. Bush was God's gift to humankind. And he was...
relatable content like that.
And that he stands by everything he did in the Trump years. He stands by the fact that he basically thwarted the Mueller investigation. He believes that it was all bullshit. And he stands by calling the National Guard on protesters who then were tear gassed so that Trump could hold the Bible. He stands by all that, but the election claims of fraud were too far. That was... So he writes... I did not agree with his stolen election mantra since I was given no say in the matter. It's like, if you were given a say, would you care? What does Billy think? Okay. Now he's with it. I was not going along for that ride. I believe the election was effectively over on December 14th when states certified results and electors cast their votes. In reality, this is in reference to Trump, he has no concern with ideology or political principle. His motive is revenge, and it's entirely personal. His objective is to purge those who did not actively support his attempts to overturn the 2020 election and to seed the party with more compliant members personally loyal to him. Donald Trump has shown he has neither the temperament nor persuasive powers to provide the kind of positive leadership that is needed. Oh, wow.
Oh, now?
So brave.
Oh, now we're there?
Now, let's take a look at a little book interview that he did, because while he said all that, here's what he told Savannah Guthrie just this week.
You say in your book it's time for the party to move on from Trump. Liz Cheney has said he is not fit to serve and should not be ever near the Oval Office again. Do you agree with that?
Well, I certainly have made it clear I don't think he should be our nominee, and I'm going to, support somebody else for the nomination.
But if he is the nominee and you have your choice is Donald Trump or whoever's running on the Democratic side, would you vote for him?
Because I believe that the greatest threat to the country is the progressive agenda being pushed by the Democratic Party. It's inconceivable to me that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee.
So even if he lied about the election and threatened democracy, as you write in your book, it's better than a Democrat.
It's hard to project what the facts are going to turn out to be 3 years hence, but as of now, it's hard for me to conceive that I wouldn't vote for the Republican nominee.
There you have it, folks. So he would still vote for Trump.
Very brave man right there.
What facts are going to change 3 years from now? This guy is such a piece of shit. I mean, it's honestly like...
Will not change.
When I have fantasies, they involve me being in a position...
Go on.
...to make him spend a day in prison for every dollar that book has generated in revenue.
Hell yeah.
I put him away for at least 22 days.
I know it's a boring fantasy, but...
no, that's a good one. I like that.
It's such a piece of garbage. And also, here's the thing that I think people should really remember. There was a whole set of elite in this country, legal elite, beltway elite, who told us it's good that Bill Barr is becoming the Attorney General because he's an adult.
Yeah.
When someone says the adults are here, understand that whoever's articulating that and whoever they're articulating it about are full of shit. They're pieces of garbage. 100%. It's a huge tip-off.
To be just glad that there's an adult in the room.
Just that construct is a pure tip-off of like you're gonna get fucked over in some way. That's the big like tell.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Barr. It's really interesting to read his because every time one of these books comes out, they get trotted out in the media circuit and kind of praised for. A little bit praised, basically, for the ways that they're now throwing Trump under the bus. As if that was brave, right? Yeah, right? But he ends his book by saying he's just waiting for, like, America's Next Top MAGA. Like, he thinks that MAGA is a positive message, that it doesn't, base its ideology on identity.
Literally wearing hat identifiers.
Yeah, just with the hood on, like, I don't see color. It's mostly white. No, so he continues. So he says, under the tax reform, deregulatory efforts generated the strongest, most resilient economy in American history, one that brought unprecedented progress to marginalized Americans. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, people who weren't billionaires before became them? Like, the marginalized millionaires really got overlooked.
To be fair, it gave millions of Americans the opportunity to experience foreclosure.
Yeah.
And that's a gift that's actually
resilience.
Keeps giving for years and years because of our bankruptcy laws. So that's...
I like this attempt at a joke, the backwards.
What's annoying?
The joke goes from funny to sad immediately.
For years and years.
Every joke
it's almost
on this
everything
show.
that comes out of my mouth just starts here and then just moves right into sad. Okay.
He says, I'm under no illusion about who's responsible for dividing the country, embittering our politics, and weakening and demoralizing our nation. It's the progressive left.
Absolutely.
And their increasingly totalitarian ideas.
This is the most insane thing about
nailed it.
All of their critiques of the left, because he's literally sitting there on TV and he's going like, the threat to America that the progressive agenda that is unconscionable. Literally, the threat of Trump was he tried to overturn an election. At what level do we start going like, well, what are you worried about? Like, what are you actually worried about? Pronouns? Is that your shit?
The tyranny of pronouns.
What is the thing you're worried about? Because there was an actual attempt at overturning an election.
The totalitarianism of cancel culture.
Yeah, Well, if a progressive is here, then everyone's going to get canceled. And I won't be able to say my favorite slurs out loud. So.
And who does Bill Barr think is buying his fucking book?
Yeah.
It's not MAGA people.
My dumbass. It's not MAGA.
It's not MAGA people. It's all the people he loathes.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are buying his book to the extent that anyone is. And I would encourage everyone, steal the book.
Yeah.
Steal the book.
Burn it.
We're going to break her Kindle as soon as we get home.
There are apps where you can scan the book. And then put it on the internet. So I would say.
Never thought of lighting a bookstore on fire, obviously, because that'd be insane. But when you go into a Hudson News at an airport, and it's like Janine Pirro, like the danger left or something, like Tommy Lahren, like everyone's out to cancel you or whatever her book is called. It's just like when you have that lineup of awfulness.
Yeah.
I didn't do it, but I should have.
Yeah.
Can we all make a pledge that if you're in an airport and you see a book display like that, you will take the nearest cookbook and put it in front of those books on the rack. And if enough of us band together to do this,
then we'll have socialism.
We can make a difference.
The beginnings of socialism.
After a while. All right. right, you guys. Let us. I didn't even tease that we had this guest, but you guys all know who we have in the house, waiting for a positive discussion. Not talking about the right wing anymore, not analyzing their bullshit, because we all know it's the same goddamn thing every single day. Let's talk about our side. Let's talk about what we're building, especially here in New York. She's a city council member for New York's 22nd district. Prior to that, she represented over 1,000 clients as a public defender. She identifies as an abolitionist, a queer Latina, and a Queens kid. Please welcome Tiffany Caban. Bienvenidos.
I'm very nervous.
Council member,
How are you?
how are you?
I'm all right. I brought my hype man.
Is that Gustavo?
That's Gustavo.
Hell yeah. State senator over there. Hell yeah. Tiffany, you've been in an elected office for only a couple months. How is it? What are the perks like? What are the snacks like? Tell us. Nap pods, are there any?
No nap pods.
Damn it.
Yeah. What is it like? It's kind of wild. There are people who want to say hi and be nice to you that you never thought would. You know, like when I was out organizing, or even when I was running for office, like Rebney and real estate people would be like, oh, and like not going anywhere near her, and now they'll come up and be like, oh, Councilmember Cabán, how are you? Can we please chat? Love you. You're great. Right now, it's a little bit overwhelming. It's like my first experience with a budget, and the budget is just in its first iteration horrific, and we've got a lot to fight for. Perks. Before this, I was obviously a public defender, and my office, yeah, shout out to the public defenders, the good guys. And my office, right, was like, literally, this is how close I sat to my office mate. We could sit in each other's lap, we could touch each other, tiny. I have 2 offices now, which is crazy.
Oh.
Yeah, and one of them, I get the biggest perk. I get to bring my dog to my office now. She's got like a little corner in my office. It's great.
Yeah, what kind of dog you have?
She is, her name is Natalie. She's a Beagle Pit Bull mix. She's 11 years old.
That's fucking adorable.
Yeah,
I would
she's pretty cute.
put like a tie on her and glasses. And
She's not that classy.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All you're doing is Instagramming your dog in office, and people are like, I don't know if she's working. Like,
You're just like, fuck, I gotta do this budget thing. But look how cute the dog looks.
well, we want to talk about the budget, but look, let's talk about you've had multiple runs at office, your second run. You first ran for Queens DA and came within ridiculous striking distance. Stolen striking distance, thank you. With some bullshit ballot errors, as we all know. But I think when I was coming up in progressive politics and leftist politics, we did not look to the electoral arena, especially I lived here in New York, and I did not know city council members. I mean, I knew who was our asshole. I mean, I knew Bloomberg. I called him out. I called him out on television. That was fun. But that was it. You know, I was just like, fuck Bloomberg, and I don't care. That has changed. We have now a left that sees the electoral arena, especially a young left, as a place to fight for. And how did that help you in your campaign? And like, what do you think about that politically?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's incredibly important, but I was like a lot of other folks where before I ran for district attorney, like I did not fuck with electoral. It was my introduction to electoral politics, right? I had never gone anywhere near it, but I guess maybe it makes more sense to talk about my personal journey a little bit. But like as I studied movements, right, and what I now know to be movement ecology, I understood that we absolutely had to be participating in this strategy, right? Because movements are made up of pieces. First of all, the life of movements are long, right? Like any liberation struggle, any civil rights movement, they're a decade long, they're decades long, but they also have different pieces that have to be present, right? And they all have to be present at the right time, right? They call them bubble bursting moments. But it's like, you have to have mass protest, you have to have people who are engaged in personal transformation, right? And you have to have people who are living outside of norms, or what we call alternatives, modeling what the possibilities are for us to then scale. But you cannot leave out the changing dominant institutions piece. And that's electoral politics. That is putting our people in those positions of power to kind of push out the bounds of what they can do, but then also recognizing that they're all, while yes, like in a certain amount of tension, they're all in relationship to one another, and the value of being in relationship to one another. And plus then we just started winning shit, right? Like that is also the big thing. Like here in not here because we're in Brooklyn, but but in Queens, in Queens, like we did some really dope things. You go back to 2018 and you're like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right?
Heard of her, yeah.
We are slaying giants. We are unseating some of the most powerful Democrats in the country. And then right after that, you're like, well, David and Goliath. We ran out Amazon, and they didn't think that we could do it, right? We came pretty close with the DA, but we had all of these really powerful wins, and that it's energizing. We have been able to expand the amount of people who are like, oh, I could fuck with this too, and we'll get involved. And now we have a bunch of organizers, leftist organizers, in the city council, and so that's really incredible.
So the anarcho crust punks can coexist with the city council member. The dumpster diving can happen alongside the budget meetings.
That's right.
After the budget meeting, you go and dumpster dive. Right? Is that what you're trying to say? Okay. It's the ecosystem. I get it.
You get it.
I'm curious as to, and maybe it's you don't have necessarily a perspective on this, but what difference has it made to not have Andrew Cuomo as the governor relative to not just the relationship with the state and the city, but just, I mean, I years ago was in a room with a lot of organizers and people who worked in, I guess, NGOs who were like, we would rather anybody than Andrew Cuomo as the governor. Anybody, like any Republican, like he's the worst that it can get. Do you have a sense of if there's been a change in terms of like that vacuum of thuggery or power? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but thuggery and power.
I feel like Gustavo has all the words.
Gustavo. Yeah, Gustavo Rivera over there reminding us that, Cuomo's not your boyfriend. I don't know if anyone was a Cuomo-sexual. Not my crew. No, not these people. Hell no. But yeah.
But is there a difference? I mean, does the city, is there a sense that there's a vacuum and there's more possibility to get progressive policies both on a city level and maybe across the state?
I mean, there's a difference for sure, right? There's a difference in culture. There's a difference in the way that power is used and wielded. From what I understand, there are a bunch of state legislators that can actually talk to our governor, maybe get some things done. But I just want to be clear that that is not the place to stop. Like, yes, it is the bare minimum not to have an abusive, power-hungry, governor at the helm, but we're not going to get what we need to get done with a corporate dem. We're not going to get what we need to get done with somebody that's like, oh yeah, let's opt into prison, giving out prison labor to corporations or all of these different things. So we still got a ton of work to do on that front.
On that front specifically, given that you're not DA in Queens, but you're a city council member, and how would you take your vision for changing this carceral-based justice system in New York that is so flawed? You've got, Rikers Jail in your district. How do you bring that to the city council now, given that maybe, as an abolitionist, where you want to be is so far from where we are right now, and especially in this moment that I want to talk more about, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's the same work in my mind, right? It is all, you locate yourself within movement and you figure out what tools in your toolbox that you're using in any given moment. And so in my mind, city council is the other side of that coin, right? When we think about why I ran for DA as an abolitionist, which seems kind of what, right? It could seem mind-blowing, but for me, harm reduction was an incredibly important strategy. It's a powerful position. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what's the goal? Abolition? Well, how do we get there? We have to end mass incarceration. How do we get there? We have to end mass criminalization. How do we get there, right? Like, we have to paradigm shift. We have to say that we're treating violence as a public health issue, that, like, all these different things. And then the connection that you can make to city council is that this pipeline that we feed into, that austerity goes hand in hand with policing and incarceration.
Yes.
So in communities, right, particularly Black, brown, working class, low income communities, when you're starved of resources and then are met with police responding to every problem, like, this is what you get. And so at the city council, what are the three big things you do? Like, yes, it's land use decisions, right? And we talk about gentrification being violence. We talk about, the lack of affordable housing. There's legislation, obviously, but, it's one of the largest budgets in the entire country. We're talking about over $98 billion that the city council and the mayor are talking, negotiating as to, like, where that money goes and where it doesn't go. And, we put $10+ billion into policing. We don't put money into, we're looking at a preliminary budget in this moment that cuts funding to our schools, to sanitation, to our public hospital systems, to like, all of these different things.
Sanitation?
Sanitation.
In New York?
I've been in New York for 4 days now, and trash is everywhere. How can they cut sanitation?
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's just on the sidewalk.
God. You haven't seen, like, all of the most popular thing that's happening right now are council members hosting these, like, rat academies.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, for people in neighborhoods to figure out how to remediate some of the rat problems. It's like, we got to pick up the trash.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I'm just visiting. I don't want to pick up the trash.
One of the joke questions I was going to ask you was, like, is there a whole separate New York City Council but made up of nothing but rats? and like, you guys, like, talk, but, like, nobody knows about it, but you guys have a meeting. And there's rat councils. They exist.
They send out the humans to do the podcast. But they're the ones who are pulling the levers.
They're under our chairs moving us.
The bill is ratified.
Wow.
Puns! I'm sorry.
So, and I mean, you can do a lot with a budget. We're coming from LA, and there's what's known as, like, the People's Budget, which is an entire movement that works along with Black Lives Matter LA. And they've been successful, although it is to be determined how much the money has been steered away from the LAPD and into what services. But you can do a lot with a budget, and it is not the sexiest work, but, like, how goes?
I mean, first of all, they're doing, like, really dope shit in LA. Like, one of the targeted things they did was they took money from police in schools, and they made, for the first time in history, basically, in the LA school system, targeted investments specifically, in Black students. And so instead of having police officers, they had these teams, right? Like a director of culture. They had restorative justice, folks. They had counselors and social workers, and they saw incredible results in a short period of time. And on a budget front, we're seeing these kinds of successes in a lot of different places. You go to Austin, they defunded the police and turned hotels into housing and got good results. Even in like, and you have to layer all of these different things, right? Like, you look at Philly, they gave housing grants to small homeowners that needed repairs, and within 3 months they saw crime go down, right? Like, an understanding that public safety, the source of it is so many different things, right? And, like, completely separating police incarceration from our definition of public safety is a key piece of it. Yes.
I'm curious as to the dynamic of when you get to the city council and you have that dynamic where now people are, you're a fellow city council person and they're treating you differently, and maybe they need your vote down the road or whatever their motivation are. And you start to articulate to them these ideas, which for a long time I feel like have been shut out of those positions of power. Like, what is their response? Like, do you have people who just go like, what? And I never thought about, I mean, do you, are there moments where you just like feel like, oh, blew that dude's mind completely.
These are my favorite conversations, especially with people who do not agree with me or think that they don't agree with me.
Right, they think you're a lunatic, and you start.
Wait, hold on. Can we like dig into that a little bit? Because
yes.
I swear to fucking God, the thing that has been most shocking to me throughout this process is that I had no idea how many people thought that I was like a monster boogeyman, and I will go and talk to them, and then I keep hearing from all these other different people who come up to me and are like, you know, everybody is telling me that like you're really nice and really reasonable and thoughtful and smart, and they were so surprised by it, and I'm like, yeah, like I am not. I don't know. And then I'm like, well,
she had showered and everything, and I was just so impressed.
I liked her blazer.
But I mean, do you get that sense like you're talking to people, and can you? I mean, I imagine there are some people who are like, oh no, everything for me is about what I can do for my real estate buddies. But I imagine there's also some people who are like, oh, I hadn't really contemplated that. And can you like actually see that change? I'm just curious about that dynamic of what the difference is to have one person or multiple people on a body like that, and what impact it can have.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I was like, oh, I had a conversation with a colleague and now they're an abolitionist.
They're an abolitionist.
They're an abolitionist. All 51 members, abolitionists. But I will say that being able to take the time and have these conversations, I feel pretty encouraged, right? Like, you're not going to get somebody every single like the whole way, right? It is all part of a process. But I had one conversation a while back with a council member who has seemingly very opposing views on policing, for example, than me. And we started talking about it. And I was like, listen, we want the same thing. We want the safest, healthiest communities possible. And to be honest with you, I only care about outcomes. So let's talk about the same thing that we think an issue is. Right. You want to throw more of the same at it, but why don't, hear me out. Let me present to you these other options that actually are empirically proven to work better, right? And this person went into, I don't know, a week later, they texted me afterwards. We're talking about somebody that sent out, we can't defund the police, we need to fund the police type literature in their campaign. And they went to a forum in their area and they got asked about policing and criminal legal reform, and texted me afterwards and was like, I said one of the things that you told me in our conversation. They didn't really like it, but I believed what you said. It made sense, so I said it. I'm like, that's a win. I'll take it. I will take it.
I took your talking point, hell yeah, and it worked. Like, it's there to take. Following up on that, it does feel like we're in a backlash moment to the Black Lives Matter movement, and that sadly on a federal level, no politician truly, at least not those leading Democrats, are interested in taking up a very real, probably the biggest uprising of our lifetimes, and an issue that we all know is, however, 30 years overdue, in need of reform, real reform and change. And you have the president at the State of the Union saying, you gotta fund the police, more training, as if there's any senator saying defund the police at all, as if that's even seriously being talked about. Meanwhile, they can't pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. This is minimum, some no-knock warrant entries it stops, chokeholds it stops, but that's very little. It's something, but they can't even do that. We're in a backlash moment. How do you push back, and especially push through these Democrats?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, one, I just want to share a frustration is that, we are constantly waging this battle of the narratives, and we are faced with kind of trying to push back on a lot of the right-wing fear-mongering, and then the corporate Dems just pile it on. I feel like there's almost no, especially when it comes to policing, criminal legal reform, it's like the third rail, and there are leftists, and then everybody else is over here. And, I think the biggest frustration I have, and I was talking about this earlier, is that we, as elected officials, in places of power and privilege, in places of access to information, we know we have access to know like what works and what doesn't, and it is the fear of public backlash where like electeds have zero backbone, right? We see it here in New York. We have electeds that have said, well, I support. They spent the entire time saying the data shows bail reform is a good thing, and then all of a sudden they're saying, well, I'm not quite sure about that anymore. And like, what changed? Not the data, not the evidence, not the research, like none of that changed, but the like sort of political climate around it has changed. The fervor around it in a given moment has changed, and that's really, really frustrating. But I want to reframe a little bit, because I think the fact that you had President Biden yelling about funding the police is actually kind of it's kind of indicative of wins in a lot of ways. They're giving this attention, right? It's the same example I give about Minneapolis. People are like, well, defund movement, it failed because this. I'm like, do you know it blows my mind that in this amount of time that was even on the ballot, right? That it got on the ballot to like abolish the police department as it existed and built out a new community safety structure. And then it got a ton of support. It did. A ton. And it didn't pass, right? But when you look at the people who didn't end up voting for it, it wasn't all people who were opposed. Actually, there was a subset of people that were like, I want to do this, but you haven't put forth the alternative for me. You haven't, with enough specificity, told me what the alternative is going to look like. And so for me, right, these are all opportunities to keep pushing it forward.
I like that. I like that reframing.
You mentioned that element of the political narrative scares off some people, even though the data, they've accepted the data. And I, rightly or wrongly, am of the belief that the dynamics that exist on a city are not terribly different than they exist on a state, or not terribly different than they exist in a federal level. The stakes may change, but the dynamics of politics is very similar. I'm curious as to like what that feels like when you talk about the political narrative and the hysteria, or whatever it is, the term that you used around that, like what formulates that? Because, I look at like the Biden administration, or you can, depending on the politician, they're in some type of bubble. And I'm curious as to like what makes that bubble where politicians who may not be looking at the polling of what actual voters want or where they can move to, but there are signifiers that that create the political narrative around them. What are the elements of that?
I mean, I think there are a lot of things at play. And the thing also that I love about hyperlocal government, about hyperlocal electoral politics, is that we're running, at least, right, progressives, leftists, grassroots candidates, we're running ground games, right? You can't run really ground. The closest we've come to like running a national ground game is Bernie Sanders, right? But we are running on, yeah, you can clap for Bernie.
Clap for Bernie.
Yeah, clap for Bernie. Theo Bernie. Ow!
But like,
every day I wake up and say, why?
Yeah.
Why is he not president?
Can I tell you that my dog has a Bark for Bernie collar, and I have not had the heart to take it off of her. She's been wearing it for how long now?
I'm never taking my Bernie sign down. It's just going to be sun-baked and sad there in the lawn, and you're going to have to stare at our failure. Okay, sorry.
But like on a national level, right, when you're up against folks with insanely huge campaign coffers, they're running air games. It's TV, it's mail, but for these hyperlocal offices, you can run circles around other candidates running really good, strong ground games. But the thing that sets it apart, and I also think the thing that creates more on-ramps and like builds our movement is that like we're having face-to-face conversations. We're also getting more information, right? And so I very unapologetically ran on defund, right, on public safety and environmental issues and other things that were like deeply, deeply important in my district. But we had conversations about like what keeps people safe, what makes them feel safe, and I can tell you consistently, not very many people said police first. It was maybe like the sixth or seventh thing they said, if they even said it. If I didn't talk about, lead with police or crime or whatever it is, and just said, hey, what makes you feel safe? What do you need? When I walked into my public, housing complex in my district, what makes you feel safe? I want the trash picked up. I want good jobs. I want, better education.
You have a piece of legislation, actually, I just read about in terms of domestic violence victims and policing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we just did a 6-hour hearing because right now, in order for survivors or victims of domestic violence to access like emergency monetary support, you have to show a cooperation with the police. You have to have filed a police report, and it's a huge barrier because we know most people don't report to the police for obvious reasons, right? So it is actually a fact that domestic violence, intimate partner violence, is between 2 to 4 times more prevalent within the law enforcement community than it is outside of the law enforcement community. So there's a very pervasive
That was a very accurate heckle.
Yeah, it was.
I love that people heckle actual facts at our shows.
It's my kind of audience.
You better fucking... I'm going to fact check your ass right now. Ferdy. Can I ask, before we move on, about Le Mayor, the new mayor, Mr. Adams.
Big support.
He's a
Big
vegan,
support in the
you
room.
guys.
Maturity.
Oh, what? Oh,
Maturity.
what? Wait. Is he a pescatarian? They don't have feelings. Oh my God, he eats fish.
You
That's
can be a
fucking hilarious.
vegan and eat fish and chicken and pork.
Sometimes beef.
As long as you feel vegan on the inside.
So, like, I know you might be limited on what you can say, but if you were to quantify, if you were to put your love for Mayor Eric Adams into a container, like, would it be bigger than like a New York pizza box, or would it be smaller than? Yeah, would it be like a takeout Chinese food container? Like what? How much love?
Matt did not want to hear the answer.
He ran off the stage.
He had to pee straight up. Just like, the fuck?
He's a huge Adams fan and doesn't want to hear anything. That is.
When you first posed this question in the back, I think you had mentioned like a bread box.
Yes.
A
bread box.
Sandwich container.
Sandwich container. A ferry, a New York ferry size of love.
You know, I have to believe that there are things that we can like work together on and move forward. So I'm gonna say, you know, a potted plant. Like there's room to grow.
You gotta care for it. There, look at that politician over here. Very good, very good.
Potted plants range in size dramatically. I mean, that's just.
I think we need to get more.
Are we talking about a succulent?
Is that Trader Joe's?
Tiny
like,
cactuses and then big like fig trees.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of a $4.99. Picked it up from Trader Joe's, succulent. You know, we'll see. Shit'll probably be dead in 6 months, but all right. But because we are in a particular moment where there's like a lot of real or imagined sort of stories of violent crime here in New York that are ricocheting, and you have Adams essentially doubling, tripling down on police presence and talking about his police force, talking about enforcing basically rules against sleeping on the subway cars, things like that, things that I'm not convinced actually do keep people safer. So yeah, thoughts on how to bridge? Are you crying?
No. So okay. So this is gonna sound terrible. Okay. So I'm allergic to my dog, and so like I have dog fur on me always. But the second that I wiped my eye with my clothing, I was like, oh fuck. Yeah, so a little bit of an allergic
That
reaction.
is love right there. You got like a fairy-sized love for your dog.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Welcome back, Matt. All right.
She talks shit about my boy, Eric Adams. I'm not getting in the line of fire. Fuck that shit.
You're trying to run for office?
I'm sorry.
Any final thoughts, Tiffany?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, one, we can't shy away from the fact that we are experiencing a spike in violence. Like, yes, we remain, one of the safest big cities in the country, but one act of violence is one too many, and so I think it's really important that we acknowledge it and say, like, this is horrific. And that the fear that folks are feeling is real, but like we don't. Again, this goes back to this idea of this higher responsibility that as electeds, as people in power, as people who have access to the information that we don't like fold underneath that and say that, look, we hear you, we can hold your pain and your concerns, and that like what we are most what is most important to us is that we're changing outcomes. And so we could do the same shit that we have done for decades that has not worked for the sake of saying we did something in the moment, or we could do what works, right? Like you look at the increased violence that we've seen in the subway system. Every single time we've seen one of these horrific events, you'll see reporting, and it's like, well, there were 6 cops on the subway platform, and so it's not preventing that, but what could, right? Access, and these are long-term goals, but we need to double and triple down on those investments, right? Access to mental health care, physical barriers so people can't be pushed in the subway, people having a home so that they're not sleeping and vulnerable out in the open at different times, right? Like we know that these things will work, and so we can acknowledge that there's a rise, but then say that like we're going to do the hard work of getting to like what the actual causes are.
Love it. Give it up for Councilmember Tiffany Caban, you guys. Holy shit. So good. Yeah. Trying to get up. I mean, it actually really does mean something. As someone who like became politicized in this city, if I had someone like you to look to and to like organize with, that would have, I would have still been. No, I'm kidding. I'm a terrible organizer. But the point is it offers so much hope, and I'm fucking glad you are where you are. You guys, we have one more segment. You ready for it? Yeah. Final fun segment. It is Women's History Month. Yes, and that is
Herstory.
It's thank you, Matt Lieb. Herstory Month.
Herstory.
Women with a Y. Women's Herstory Month, and that's always a little pandery. It's a little predictable. You got the greats, the Susan B. Anthonys, the Fannie Lou Hamers, the Cardi B's, blah, blah, blah. But there's one category of women that we seem to neglect, the cunts. And, these are women who've shattered the glass ceiling and then used the shards to stab us in the back. And I feel like they don't get recognition, right? And since it's award season, what better way to celebrate than with an award show? Tonight, we present a news broke joint, actually, the Thatchers.
The Thatchers.
Yes. We have 4 nominees for the Thatchers. We can all vote together. Our first nominee is Lauren Boebert for her work in Islamophobic club comic.
I looked to my left, and there she is, Ilhan Omar. And I said, well, she doesn't have a backpack, we should be fine.
Oh, so classy. Next, for her work in buying stock in Lockheed Martin after the invasion of Ukraine, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's a great film. She tweeted this, though: war and rumors of war is incredibly profitable and convenient. And just like that, the media now has a lie to use as reason for our shattered economy and out of control inflation. What a sad existence. It must be to shill for, I bought stock. I bought $15,000 worth of stock after I tweeted that.
It wouldn't be a war without profiteers.
Everybody give it up for Marjorie. No, but yes. Boo. And our third nominee for her work in tanking the $15 minimum wage with the curtsy, Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Here she is. She's going to go tap Mitch McConnell on the shoulder. And
hey,
he looks,
I love you.
And he turns back around. He doesn't actually care. Oh.
Miss Cinema. No.
No. On a $15 minimum wage, every worker can. Yes.
Queen.
And our final.
Yes.
Yes.
Queen.
That sounds more like an order. That's like.
Yeah, that's what I
Yes,
say to my
queen.
boss when I don't make a minimum wage. I make less than minimum wage. I go, yes, queen. You're my boss.
I am. And the final nominee and lady who asks me if I work here, Janine Pirro, for her work in No, Geraldo, COVID isn't a tragedy.
842,000 deaths. Let's say half of them are not COVID as the prime cause. That's still an enormous number of dead people, historic, really. Not seen anything like this in 100 years. So I think we have to be careful now about deminimizing this profoundly unsettling, devastating experience that the nation has gone through. Yes, there's hype. Yes, Jesse's right that the media is in the doom and gloom business. But this is something that historians will look back on and say, my God, this was awful.
That could be debated.
The fuck? I don't know.
What exactly is sad? How do you define 1 million
Tragedy.
dead?
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Shall we do a good applausometer or a boo-o-meter?
Well, we need to debate it first,
first we
don't
have debate. Who deserves your Thatcher? Sam Seder.
I mean, if I had to choose, I would, of course, go with Katherine Harris, the former Secretary of State of Florida, in 2000. She was, unfortunately, not nominated in 2022.
Yeah. She was shortlisted.
What'd she do again?
I don't even know if she's still alive, but I think that she deserves a special mention because I think a lot of the shit show is a function of her. But that being said, I just think that Janine Pirro deserves it just because she can still move her mouth. And I think that's kudos.
What is that in reference to?
Well, just like I think like her flesh has been pulled pretty tight. And
yeah.
I think she said that's debatable.
I
just
like
because
my flesh tight.
That was just the easiest thing for her to articulate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Fewer vowels.
All right, we got one for Janine Pirro. Tiffany Caban, what do you have a nominee as well, correct?
I want to add an honorable mention.
Absolutely.
Into here. Malliotakis, Nicole Malliotakis, is like the poor man's version of every one of these massive villains up here.
Can you explain the villain a little bit more?
I mean, I feel like the audience knows. Which also, by the way, all of y'all Brooklynites, like with the lines redrawn, like do not fuck this up. Because there's an opportunity to vote out Nicole Malliotakis, flip the seat from red to blue. So let's make sure we get that done. I mean, most recently she was.
She sounds bad.
She sounds bad.
Awful.
We're from Los
the
Angeles.
national audience, but whatever. And there's a few people watching. Who of these four fine ladies would you give the Thatcher to?
Oh, fuck. I don't know.
There can only be one.
I'll go Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I like it. For that and everything else, and the space lasers.
Yeah, I have to
Agree.
I have to go with my girl, MGT.
MTG.
I forget it, but the Jewish space lasers thing to me was like, that was special. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of different types of anti-Semitism out there that exists. A lot of it is obviously it's all deplorable. But to think that she looks at Jews and she goes, I know you got that fucking space laser. I know you have it somewhere. And it's doing something with the weather. Like, that to me is like, oh, she thinks that we're magic.
Wait a second. Your argument is we don't have space lasers?
Maybe no one told me about the space laser.
You gotta turn 40 before they let you in on the secret.
I was gonna say, you're not old enough. The Kabbalah says you don't get to know about the space lasers till your 41st moon.
Oh, shit. Well, in that case.
Very good. All right. I have to go with the person who's just a fucking pimple on America's ass right now. That's Senator Sinema. Absolutely. And the fact that she wants praise from fucking Mitch McConnell for voting that down, and he doesn't give a shit about her, never cares about her, is just, I mean, there's just manic pixie dream girl.
She can change him.
Speaking of people we need to vote the fuck out, Arizona's so sick of her, man. She's got like no approval rating. Hate Sinema. She gets the Thatcher absolutely for this year. The rest of them, you expect it. And guys, that has been the Bitchuation Room Live.
That is it.
Give it up for everybody, for Sam Seder, for Councilmember Tiffany Caban, for comedian Matt Lieb.
Thank you. And for Francesca Fiorentini, everybody.
Before we go, there is still a war and it's fucked up. So I want to recommend two organizations, Razom and International Rescue. Obviously, if folks haven't donated, donate. We're going to leave this up. And then also, Maximilian Inhofe works on this show, and his family members actually have been left without a home because they were in the States visiting, and then the war started. So if you want to kick them some money, help them find some temporary housing in the United States, that would be amazing. So that is Elena and Natalie here. And just thank you guys so much. And remember, guys, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it, baby. Bye.
Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, let me rock Chaka Khan. Let me rock this all I wanna do, Chaka Khan. Let me rock Chaka Khan. Let me rock